You ever notice how two people can face the same challenge and one grows while the other gives up? Same problem, same pressure, different outcome. Why? It's not the environment. It's not the opportunity. It's not even talent. It's mindset. The way we think, how we see the world, determines everything. Not just what we do, but how we do it. Mindset is the lens through which we interpret failure, effort, growth, and even success. Some people approach life like a test. Others see it as a classroom. One fears the result. The other embraces the process. If we believe our skills are fixed, then failure feels fatal. But if we believe we can grow, failure becomes feedback. We don't control every event, but we control how we respond. And in that space, between what happens and how we act, is the power of mindset. Great leaders, great artists, great parents, great athletes, they all have something in common. It's not perfection, it's perspective. They don't see obstacles as stop signs. They see them as signals to learn. They don't just chase results, they pursue growth. They wake up each day not asking, what can I win? But how can I improve? Mindset isn't about pretending things are easy. It's about choosing to believe that even the hard things are worth it. So if you want to change your life, start by changing your story. Start by changing the voice in your head. Start by believing you can grow. Then take one small step to prove it. Because at the end of the day, talent opens the door, but mindset decides whether you walk through it. That's not just a phrase. It's a fundamental truth of how humans operate. Two people can look at the exact same situation and come away with completely different interpretations. One sees a threat, the other sees a challenge. One sees failure, the other sees a lesson. The situation hasn't changed. But the story each person tells themselves about it has. That story is what determines their next move. What we perceive becomes our truth, even if it's not the whole truth. And that truth drives our behavior, our confidence, and our willingness to act. Think about a time you were rejected, maybe from a job, a school, or even a relationship. Some people carry that rejection like a weight, proof that they weren't enough. Others use it as fuel, a signpost pointing towards something better or a call to improve. The event is the same. The difference is the mindset that filters it. When we believe the world is working against us, we become guarded, hesitant, defensive. But when we believe that every moment, even the painful ones, can teach us something, we lean in with curiosity instead of retreating with fear. This is why mindset isn't just a motivational tool, it's a framework for navigating life. The stories we create from what we see and experience are more powerful than the facts themselves. A person who perceives hardship as growth becomes resilient. A person who views struggle as failure becomes stuck. And when teams, families, or organizations adopt a collective mindset rooted in possibility rather than limitation, their culture transforms. They stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking, what is this trying to show me? That shift, subtle but profound, is the beginning of lasting change. It's a mindset that separates those who keep evolving from those who stay stuck trying to look flawless. We live in a culture obsessed with being right, being fast, being perfect. But perfection is a myth. It's an illusion that convinces us we're never enough until we have it all figured out. When we chase perfection, we play it safe. We avoid the messy parts of learning because we're afraid of looking foolish. But the truth is, real progress begins the moment we stop performing and start growing. When someone values growth over perfection, they don't fear mistakes, they expect them. In fact, they see mistakes as proof they're stretching beyond their comfort zone. Athletes review film to see where they misstepped. Musicians rehearse because they know the beauty is in the process, not the first take. Leaders learn more from failures than they ever do from wins. Growth is not linear, and it's rarely graceful. But every misstep, every awkward attempt, is a building block. Those who embrace growth understand that the goal isn't to get it right all the time. It's to get better over time. This mindset also changes how we view feedback. When perfection is the goal, feedback feels like criticism. It threatens our image, our ego. But when growth is the goal, feedback becomes a gift, an insight we didn't have before. It stops being personal and starts being purposeful. It's no longer about proving ourselves. It's about improving ourselves. People who lean into growth don't ask, did I do it perfectly? What did I learn? What can I try next? That question alone unlocks more potential than any perfect performance ever could. Every decision we make, every risk we take, or don't take starts long before we move. It starts in the mind. Before we apply for that job, ask for that opportunity. Or take that first step, we've already run a mental simulation of how it might play out. If that inner narrative tells us we're not ready, not good enough, not capable, we hesitate or walk away. But if we've trained our mind to believe we're adaptable, resourceful, and capable of learning through the unknown, we act, even when things are uncertain. Our mindset is the software that drives every move we make. Think of someone standing on the edge of a big decision. It could be launching a business, speaking up in a meeting, or moving to a new city. The external circumstances might look the same: risk, fear, uncertainty. But mindset determines whether they move forward or retreat. A fixed mindset waits for permission or the perfect time. A growth mindset creates momentum from belief. It says, I may not have all the answers now, but I'll figure it out as I go. This isn't reckless optimism. It's practiced confidence. It's understanding that courage doesn't come from knowing you'll succeed. It comes from believing you can grow through the challenge. The most powerful people aren't necessarily the most skilled or the most intelligent. They're the ones who take action when others freeze. And the reason they act isn't because they know everything. It's because they've built the internal foundation to believe they can adapt along the way. That belief fuels behavior. That behavior creates results. And those results reinforce the mindset. It's a loop, and it always begins in the same place with what we believe about ourselves. Change your mindset and your actions follow. Change your actions and your entire life begins to shift. It's easy to stay optimistic when everything is going according to plan. But true mindset, the kind that shapes who we are, doesn't show up when things are smooth. It shows up in resistance, in tension, in disruption. It's in the moment when the deal falls through, the plan fails, or the door closes. That's when we discover what we're really made of, not by our intentions or our words, but by how we respond. Because pressure doesn't just build character. It exposes it. It turns mindset from theory into practice. When we encounter setbacks, our initial instinct is to resist them. We want comfort, clarity, control. But obstacles are invitations. They don't always feel like it, but they are. They invite us to stretch, to shift, to sharpen our thinking. The person who embraces this mindset doesn't ask, why is this happening to me? They ask, what is this revealing about me? That one question flips the narrative. It moves us from victim to student, from helpless to capable. Suddenly, the obstacle isn't just something to overcome, it's something to learn from. Some of the most admired individuals in any field are not the ones who had the easiest path. They're the ones who stood back up after being knocked down. What made them extraordinary wasn't just talent or timing. It was the mindset that met adversity with clarity and courage. They didn't pretend the obstacle wasn't real. They just didn't let it define them. Instead, they let it refine them. That kind of mindset turns pain into purpose and setbacks into signals. And it all begins with the belief that obstacles are not the end of the story. They're the part that reveals what the story is truly about. In a world obsessed with instant success and overnight transformation, we often underestimate the quiet power of consistent effort. We want big wins, fast results, visible outcomes. But growth doesn't usually happen in a single breakthrough. It happens in layers. It's built one decision, one step, one disciplined choice at a time. The people who go the furthest aren't the ones who sprint the fastest. They're the ones who show up again and again, especially when it's hard, especially when it's boring, especially when no one's watching. Think of effort like interest in a savings account. At first, it doesn't look like much. You show up early, stay late, read the extra chapter, take the extra rep, and there's no applause. But over time, that effort adds up. It multiplies. It creates momentum that others can't see until it becomes too obvious to ignore. While the world chases hacks and shortcuts, those with the right mindset stay focused on the long game. They know that small daily choices done with intention will always beat big bursts of energy fueled by motivation alone. Effort isn't just about working harder. It's about believing that every bit of input matters, even if the output isn't immediate. It's a mindset that says, this may not pay off today, but it's building something I can't yet see. That belief keeps us going through plateaus, setbacks, and slow seasons. Because in the long run, the gap between where you are and where you want to be is not closed by talent or luck. It's closed by steady, compounding effort. And that kind of progress, though gradual, becomes unstoppable. The words we speak to others and especially to ourselves shape the way we think, act, and live. We often overlook the power of language because it feels automatic. But every phrase we repeat becomes a thread in the fabric of our mindset. When we say things like, "I always mess this up," or "I'm not a creative person," we're not just describing reality, we're reinforcing a belief. That belief becomes a filter, and soon we stop seeing opportunities beyond what our language allows. Words aren't just tools for communication. They're tools for construction of mindset, identity, and possibility. The most powerful shifts in mindset often begin with subtle shifts in language. Changing "I can't do this" to "I haven't figured this out yet" opens a completely different mental path. One is a dead end, the other is a detour. One shuts the door. The other invites curiosity. The difference is small on the surface, but enormous in outcome. Teams that use language like "we're learning" instead of "failed" build resilience. Individuals who replace "I have to" with "I get to" build gratitude. These aren't semantics. They're signals to the brain about how to interpret experience. Language also determines how we relate to challenge and change. When we describe difficult situations as impossible, we give up authority. When we describe them as tough but manageable, we take ownership. The brain listens to the words we feed it. Over time, those words either limit us or lift us. Leaders, creators, parents, teachers, anyone who influences others must be especially intentional with their language, because the words we choose not only reflect our mindset, they also shape the mindsets of those around us. Before anyone can lead a team, a family, or an organization, they have to lead themselves. That's the foundation. Influence doesn't begin with a title, a platform, or a strategy. It begins with mindset. The way we think about ourselves, our challenges, and our growth becomes the lens through which we lead others. If our internal dialogue is filled with doubt, fear, or insecurity, that energy seeps into our decisions and relationships, whether we realize it or not. But when we build inner clarity and resilience, we project that same strength outward. Great leaders are not just visionaries, they are self-aware. They do the hard internal work first. They ask tough questions: am I reacting or responding? Am I driven by ego or by purpose? Am I leading from fear or from belief? This kind of reflection doesn't always come naturally, especially in fast-paced environments where action is valued more than introspection. But the most effective leaders understand that how they show up internally shapes the culture they create externally. People don't just follow direction, they follow energy. They follow presence, and presence is built from within. Leadership is not about being the loudest voice in the room. It's about creating space for others to grow, speak, and thrive. But to create that space, we first have to be grounded in our own mindset. Leaders who lead from a place of wholeness, not insecurity, invite trust. They're not threatened by questions, failures, or different perspectives, because they've already wrestled with those things themselves. When you lead yourself well, with humility, courage, and clarity, you don't have to convince people to follow you. They choose to.